Hi. So thank you for the introduction. Yes, my name is Dr. Beatriz Craven, and most people call me Dr. B. I am a psychologist and Houston's go-to gal for all things soul talk. I'm the founder of Modern Therapy, which is a psychology practice where me and my team, we work with folks who are creative, we work with professionals who are dealing with life. I'm also the creator behind Human Headquarters, which might be the most favorite, meaningful thing I've ever made. And so when it comes to headquarters, what we do is we curate these small groups of super positive and driven people who want to come in and dig into life, talk about the realness of what's going on. We set goals together, we set intentions together, and we basically hoorah the hell out of one another to go out there and live our best lives. It's awesome. So our theme for this month is compassion. And when I heard this, I got really excited. Because when it comes to compassion, and I think back on my story, I think it might be the most vital ingredient in what has preserved my own path in creating my own things. So let's wind it back a little bit. It's maybe 2007. I'm a PhD candidate in College Station, Texas. And to this day, sometimes I still wonder who let me in. It felt very legally blonde. It's very hard to get into a PhD program, and I just came in like a bat out of hell. This is where I need to be. I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I feel like this is the direction I need to go. Psychology and empathy were my art form. And so as I get there, I'm so excited and full of passion, but I'm green and I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I do what people do when they're in that place. You know, it's kind of like if you remember just being in school and you're kind of like working out a problem and you reach this point where you're starting to think, am I doing this right? And then you start to think a little bit more and you go, I don't know that I know what I'm doing. And so you kind of like lean back a little bit, you know, you kind of like look at the person next to you and you're like, hey, did you get 7? And you find out it's like -9. It's like not even anywhere close. And whenever you're so green, whenever you're in this place of newness and unknown, our usual go-to isn't to immediately jump into this place of security. Most of us don't immediately in that place go, oh, like that's not what I got. Yeah, tell me about your process. Help me learn a little bit. Usually we go into this place of like, oh my God, did everyone else get -9? Oh my God. And then you kind of start to step back a little bit and you start to do what we do. We start to step back and we start to hide and we start to not show our work to other people anymore. We start to not show our process anymore as we really focus on getting it together quietly. And so we know that when it comes to that shielding, when it comes to that stepping back, that's really not good for our creative process because we know that it's actually the opposite that we need to do. We need to step forward. We need to play. We need to stay flexible. We need to stay open if we want to get out there and do what we want to do. And so I believe that so if we were to look at it this way, that's stepping back. In academia, we actually call this imposter syndrome. And so one way of looking at imposter syndrome, if you were to imagine that you were a part of a herd of zebras, our imposter syndrome is gonna want to come in, and it's our fear. And our fear says one of these days, one of these zebras is gonna turn around and it's gonna look at you. And then slowly all the other zebras are gonna turn around, they're gonna look at you too. And one of them is gonna lean over, is gonna say, wait a minute, you're just a horse with stripes. And so that's what it's saying. It's saying one of us is not like the other. And it ends up impacting the way that we feel in terms of that openness to go out and create. And so when it comes to creativity, I believe that there are a few unique challenges to this type of process and this type of work. And so the first thing, when we look at our own work. We do our best whenever we move outside of what we know and into this place of intuition. But when it comes to intuition, that doesn't have a handbook. And we love to look at one another as mirrors, as comparison to say, you're okay. This is the way that we organize our world. And so when we step into that place of unknown, things get a lot scarier. Things get a lot more unsure. We're not exactly certain on where we are anymore. And so the thing is that we're listening to our intuition, and we kind of have to start engaging in this process of listening into what we vibe with, because our passions aren't always clear. We just kind of have to listen, this feels good to me, this feels right to me. And I know, depending on your industry, you might be an artist, you might be a graphic designer, you might be, in another career. Again, we always bring creativity into what it is that we do. There's always room for that. That's where we do the best. And so I'm sure that there are people out there in your industry where you're looking and you kind of like crush on them. You have that girl crush, that guy crush, and you might follow their Instagram and you like all their stuff and you feel like a little bit of a creep, but you do it anyway, because there's something about it that just vibes for you, and you say, there's something that feels tribe about this, or like home or familiar about this, and I want to be closer to that. And so you might find yourself feeling inspired and moved in this direction, but you're never going to be able to replicate what it is that your mentors, your people do, because they bring something in the way that only they can. It has their special flavor, their unique fingerprint on it. And the same is true for you. And the only way that we can get into that is, if we move out of this place of what we know and into the unknown. But it's not always the easiest thing to do. It wasn't too long ago, I took this art class. And it was an art class where it seemed to just fall out of the cosmos for me. I guess I needed like some sort of cosmic lesson. I didn't realize it at the time, but this art class came to be. And I was excited about it because it was an abstract art class. So I'm like, perfect. If we end up operating in this place where we do our best in our intuition, we kind of are forced into this place when it comes to abstract art. So it should be easy, right? And so I go in and I take this art class, and I want it to be really good. I love to make things beautiful. And whether or not that's bringing in the beauty out of a person, or whether that's making a room beautiful through design, or making a beautiful piece of work through writing. I love to make things beautiful. And I was really inspired and moved by this artist. She was fabulous and just so good at what she did. And I really wanted to make something beautiful. I really wanted to do something good. But what ended up happening is that I start holding my paintbrush too firmly. I'm trying to make it good. I'm trying to make it beautiful, and I keep forcing it. And it just keeps getting worse. It keeps getting worse. I keep just doing it too hard. And there's at a point, particularly when it comes to painting it and the art, where you kind of have to leave it alone, or it just kind of turns brown and hideous. And so that's what happened to me. I kept working at it until I just created this horrible monstrosity. This thing that was supposed to be so beautiful was so horrible. And it was so funny because the person facilitating it, this artist, was just so kind and so loving and so amazing. And she comes next to me and she's like, And I look at her with so much love in my heart because I appreciate her so much in this moment, but I'm like, it's okay. It's horrible. I should have stopped a long time ago. And she looks at me and she's like, yeah. Oh my God. So that was my point, and that was my reminder. So instead of having this beautiful painting that I can hang on my wall, I now have this beautiful reminder of don't forget to play. And don't forget, when you hold your expectations too firmly, you suffocate your fire. Second thing I believe we run into. There's something with the creative process where what we do is kind of like birthed through us. And so it becomes almost like inextricably tied to our essence and who we are in this very personal way. It makes creative work outrageously vulnerable. And how many other places do we labor, do we carry this thing, do we have this vision, we do all of this work, we sweat, we pour everything that we have into what we do, and then we put it out into the world. For what? For people to then be able to have their opinions on it, to critique it, to judge it. It's really hard to hold that kind of space. And so what a challenge for us to come in and have to recognize this thing that I do, it comes through me, but it's also not me. That's tough. And so at my point in this story, I've now graduated from college, jumped through all of the hoops and fire circles to do that. And so I finished, and now it's my turn to be in the world and go out there and do my thing. And so I start with my practice, I start with modern therapy. And at this point in my life, I know that being true to my authentic self is vital for me. I had lived way too many years trying to be what other people wanted me to be, to listen to other people's expectations, and I was done suffering with that. And so I knew I'm going to dedicate, I don't know exactly where I'm going or what I need to do, but I'm going to keep listening to that thing inside me that vibes, that thing that says, move left, move right, until I get where I need to go. And so in this path of listening and trusting my intuition and my process, I end up watching this video that really helped me, because now that I've created modern therapy, now I've moved into something even scarier for me. Because I get this idea for human headquarters, and it's just this thing that just like strikes me like a lightning bolt to the temple, and I don't know what it's supposed to be. I'm looking and yearning for something in my own life, and I haven't quite seen it. And so this feels even more unknown. And so I have this vision. I can get a sense of its vibe. We're bringing people together. We're sharing our stories. We're sharing our realness. We're being supportive. We're living our best lives. That's kind of all I have. And so as I'm thinking about safeguarding my process, I watched this video, and this video is by Ira Glass. It's called The Gap. And what it does is it starts to spur this new way of thinking, this new kind of like mindset and lifestyle for me that really helped me through and safeguard my creative process. So let's take a look.
Beide Positionen, vielleicht richtig vorgestellt für die ein ganz tolles Gespräch.
Nobody tells people who are beginners, and I really wish somebody had told this to me, is that all of us who do creative work, like, we get into it, and we get into it because we have good taste. But it's like there's a gap, that for the first couple of years that you're making stuff, what you're making isn't so good, okay? It's not that great. It's trying to be good. It has ambition to be good, but it's not quite that good. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, your taste is still killer. And your taste is good enough that you can tell that what you're making is kind of a disappointment to you. You know what I mean? A lot of people never get past that phase. A lot of people at that point, they quit. And the thing I would just like say to you with all my heart is that most everybody I know who does interesting creative work, they went through a phase of years where they had really good taste, they could tell what they were making wasn't as good as they wanted it to be. They knew it felt short. It didn't have this special thing that we wanted it to have. And the thing I would say to you is everybody goes through that. And for you to go through it, if you're going through it right now, if you're just getting out of that phase, you got to know it's totally normal. And the most important possible thing you could do is do a lot of work. Do a huge volume of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week or every month you know you're going to finish one story. Because it's only by actually going through a volume of work that you're actually going to catch up and close that gap. And the work you're making will be as good as your ambitions. It takes a while. It's going to take you a while. It's normal to take a while, and you just have to fight your way through that. Okay?
So I remember watching this video, and it was just like mind blow. It was everything that I needed to hear because it felt so normalizing. It took this weight off of me. It said, the things that you're experiencing right now, they're totally normal. They're totally okay. What's happening is that you're in the gap right now. And so the first time in a while, I felt like I was able to breathe. But the thing about this video, what Ira gifted me was huge, but what he didn't tell me was what I'm supposed to do when I'm in the gap to actually survive the elements. Because whenever you're in there are times where it's joyous and inspiring and amazing, and there are times where it feels like somebody just threw your ego in the dryer and it just gets tossed and bruised and thrown around. And in those times, I wasn't exactly sure what to do. That's where compassion comes in. Dr. Kristen Neff is our leading researcher in self-compassion, and I love the way that she breaks this down in a way that's very easy to take with you. And so these are the elements to hold on to carry you through the gap. So when it comes to self-compassion, the first part to keep in mind, we start off with this process of mindful awareness. And mindful awareness is basically, can I tell what it is that I'm feeling right now? Because whenever we're feeling, we're just so in it and we just kind of move wherever it is that our feelings move. And so as we engage in this process, this practice, this daily practice of what am I feeling right now, it helps us get a little bit more centered. Because instead of just riding this roller coaster, all of a sudden, I know what it is that's going on for me. And so maybe in one moment, I'm feeling happy. And then maybe another moment, I might be doing something and I say, oh, I'm feeling a little unsure. Maybe another time I feel a little hangry. So these are good skills to have. It will slow down your reaction time. So it'll help you in numerous parts of your life. And so what'll end up happening is it'll start to help you create a little bit of space between where you are and what it is that you're feeling. So it's mindful awareness. Can I tell what it is that I'm feeling right now? And the idea with that too is to remember that the practice is one of non-judgment. I don't need to analyze what it is that I'm feeling right now. I just need to name it. I just need to call it out. The second piece of self-compassion is common humanity. And so the reminder here is that when I'm in the gap, this is a part of the process. I might feel very isolated in my experience, but the truth is, these emotions that I feel are not unique to me. Even my mentors, even those crushes that I have, they have all gone through the same thing. We just don't talk about all the stuff that happens in the gap. And I think we should be talking about it. So common humanity. This feels very isolated for me, but it's really not that unique to me. It's a part of my human experience. Third thing, when it comes to self-compassion, is kindness. Can I be kind to myself in this moment? And when we're looking at kindness, we're thinking, how can I be a really true and solid friend for myself? This is not the friend that you call when you want to be enabled. This is not the friend that you call when you want to be coddled or just hear the things that your ego wants to be stroked to. This is the true friend who really, truly loves you, who looks out for you, and who will tell you the honest truth of what you need to hear from this place of security. This is one of the biggest barriers that come up for us when it comes to compassion, because we think, why would I tell myself I'm okay if I'm not okay with where I am right now? Compassion does not come in, it doesn't come in and like pat you on the head and say, hey, you're perfect pumpkin, you don't need to change anything. That's not what compassion is saying. What compassion does, it comes in and it helps you tame and calm your ego. It helps you calm the parts of yourself that start to get really reactive, that might get you upset, that might get you with those protective mechanisms that come up, that might make you defensive, or worse, that might pull you out of the gap. When what we need to do is stay in it. So that's what compassion is going to help you do. Whenever you're operating off of this tone of kindness, that part is really important too, thinking of like, how am I coming into it? Because there's a very big difference between, you got this, and you got this. Very different. And the last thing with it too, so what Kristen does, and there's reason for this, is to almost kind of third person herself a little bit to help kind of like make it that much more obvious that the things that I am hearing in my head are not me. their feelings, their emotions, their thoughts, they're not really me. So she'll bring in this third person. And so sometimes she'll like refer to herself. So if you ever listen to a lecture from Kristen, she's super maternal, and she's also like she's a mom, right? And so for her, it like helps her to have this more maternal voice. And so she might even refer to herself as darling. It's okay, darling. You got this. For me, if I were to ever call myself darling, I would never be able to look at myself in the mirror again. But that's me. That works for Kristen, and that's absolutely fabulous. You have to be able to figure out what is that truly authentic voice for me. So my internal voice is a little bit more kind of bro-ish in the feminine. It's kind of like, get it, girl. You got this, babe. Like, keep at it. So it's a little bit more kind of in that vibe. It works for me. Find that tone that works for you. Be mindful of your self-talk, because we all have it. It's that chatter, it's that tape that's playing in the back of your head. What would happen if we got on our own team? If you're going to be in the gap, it's going to be tough. You might as well have your own back. So can I be that friend to myself? So these are the elements of self-compassion. These are the things that are going to help you carry through. I have this very distinct and powerful memory for me. It was probably a week into starting Human Headquarters, and we had shut down for the night, and at that point it wasn't what it is today. It was trying to be this thing. I could feel the heartbeat, but it wasn't quite it yet. And so I remember it was at night, and I'm like sitting in my car, and I'm just like crying. I felt so vulnerable and open and scared. And in that moment, I remember my husband was sitting next to me, and bless his heart, he was trying to help. And he was stumbling, he's trying to find the words to help me feel okay again. And I remember putting a hand over my heart, and I remember saying, I'm okay. And I meant it. It wasn't like the 1,000 other bullcrap I'm okays I've given in my life. Like, this one was like real. And I remember kind of pointing at my chest and telling him, like, everything that I'm feeling right now, this is why nobody does this. Entrepreneurship, going out there, being a creative, birthing these things, this is why people don't do it. This is awful. And it was amazing, because in that moment, I also felt a new emotion, something that really surprised me at that moment in time. I started to feel proud of myself. Because in that moment, I could tell what it is that I was feeling. And I could recognize that I was in the gap, and that even though I was walking through this and it felt so alone, I knew that I wasn't alone. And in that moment, I could also be kind to myself, which for me was a huge win in and of itself. And so if there's anything that I really hope for you as you go out into the world, as you birth these things in only the way that you can, with the fingerprint that only you can, in the flavor that only you can, I hope that you remember that you're okay, that you're in the gap. Get after it, homie. Thank you.